Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is June 13th, and today we have an article about a very famous lady.
That's right, and not only is she just a famous lady, she's also 20 times larger than the average woman. She's really tall and green, and interestingly, her second toe is longer than her big toe.
It doesn't sound like a lady I'd want to run into at night.
Yeah, she does sound a little dangerous, but in fact, she's been a beacon of freedom and a symbol of a lot of really wonderful, positive things that the United States can embody.
Can is embody. The key word.
That's right, can embody.
But you know, I just read a sentence in this ancient Chinese text I was reading. He said, where there is great beauty, there is going to be great evil. That was a sentence in this old history. And then it was this woman who this guy wanted to marry, and they warned him. They said that she's very beautiful, but she is really nasty. And it turns out she was. And it has that sentence sort of like a proverb, sort of, where you have a great beauty, you're going to have great evil.
Well, specifically, we're talking about Lady Liberty, or the Statue of Liberty, or the Freedom Lady in direct Chinese. And I don't know if I would say her great beauty itself hides an evil of herself, but maybe perhaps some of the things that the United States has done in the intervening years.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So it stands for a lot of great values that we aspire to in the States, but we often don't live up to.
Aspire is an excellent word here.
Yeah. Aspire is spelled A-S-P-I-R-E. A-S-P-I-R-E, and you use it with the preposition to aspire to something. There's something that you really admire and you want to be more like it. So we really want to be, we want to be a free country. We want to respect human rights and all these other things, but we don't always live up to these things.
And I think aspire also has that feeling that it's something that easy. We don't aspire to a really good lunch.
That's right.
We aspire to really great high goals.
That we have to work hard for. That's right. Okay, so that's enough background. The title of our article today is Commemorating the Historic Arrival of Lady Liberty in New York. Lady Liberty is, of course, the Statue of Liberty that we've been talking about all this time. Okay, and here's our article, Commemorating the Historic Arrival of Lady Liberty in New York. In New York Harbor stands tall a gigantic copper and steel structure, the Statue of Liberty, formerly known as Liberty Enlightening the World, but nicknamed Lady Liberty. It has been an iconic symbol of freedom and democracy since it was shipped to the U.S. in 1885. A gift from France to the U.S., the statue is a sign of friendship between the two countries and carries a strong message about freedom.
In 1865, a Frenchman put forward the idea of building a statue to celebrate both the end of slavery after the Civil War and the 100th anniversary of American independence. This international project saw French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi bring the figure to life, while American architect Richard Morris Hunt began designing the base ahead of Lady Liberty's arrival.
Lady Liberty's journey across the Atlantic Ocean was no small feat. The statue was disassembled into 350 individual pieces and packed into 214 crates. It was also carefully labeled for a smooth and accurate reassembly. New York Harbor witnessed the arrival of Lady Liberty on June 17, 1885, marking the beginning of her significant presence in the U.S.
Despite arriving in 1885, Lady Liberty remained incomplete, awaiting her permanent base. In 1886, with the foundation in place, the final stage of Lady Liberty's assembly began. The delicate process of attaching the copper sheets to a steel frame took 4 months to complete. With her torch held high, Lady Liberty serves as a timeless reminder of the lasting values that unite nations and inspire individuals.
Now, the Statue of Liberty is a really common subject for reports that you write in grade school. I wrote one when I was in grade school, all about the Statue of Liberty. However, I still learned something new from this article. I find it quite interesting.
This is a topic that There's a lot of negativity in history. Let me put it this way. It's very easy to get caught up in strongman history and war-based history. Mm-hmm. This is a topic that has lots of very fascinating little details and avenues. If you are looking for something to really deep dive, there are so many fun little details and hidden little stories built into the construction of the Statue of Liberty. I am a huge fan of this topic, and anybody that's a fan of history should really have some fun today.
And she's like a beacon of hope for all this negativity that you're referring to, that you can't avoid if you read the news. It's gotten to the point where I will read maybe the headline, and that's it. I'm just not going to read the news anymore. It's just too depressing. But when you think about this, you think this country really, really aspired to these high ideals, is still trying hard in spite of everything.
And this is from France. Here are these people that were initially an incredibly powerful ally of the United States, that France facilitated the creation of the United States and backed up and secured the nation while they were separating from the British Empire. And then they're like, hey, you guys did this thing that we had been asking you to do for a long time, end slavery in the New World. And we want to give you this really great statue. It's a really special sign of friendship between two countries that maybe in the past 100 years have begun to see things somewhat differently.
I think they're getting closer again because I follow the French news every day to practice my French. I think they are basically quite close now. But I also wanted to add that the U.S. Revolution inspired the French Revolution.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a lot of connections there. Let's learn about this particular one. And it's quite an emotional one. So the title, Commemorating, means to remember something. We often use this after someone is dead, like to commemorate the memory of President Lincoln or something like that, but doesn't necessarily have to be dead. So historic arrival. Historic means it was important in history. You're going to find this in practically any history account about the U.S. or historical account of the U.S. Arrival means it came. Lady Liberty, as we said, is a nickname for the Statue of Liberty in New York. Another thing that I learned from this article that I didn't know before was how they kind of wanted it to, they wanted it to be a reward for ending slavery. As soon as I read stuff like that, I start tearing up because I have read a lot about the Civil War in recent years. As soon as you talk about it, you think, so many of our problems all go back to that. And thank God that was the beginning of trying to make things right.
This is neither here nor there, I suppose. I just had a conversation 2 days ago with a very well-meaning person that I personally like a lot. And he asked me as a person that has degrees in history, has studied this topic, if someone says to you that slavery was not the cause of the United States Civil War, disregard their opinion. When the southern states left the United States, they wrote letters saying why they wanted to leave the Union. And in every single one of those letters, multiple times over, they said slavery is the reason we're leaving. They never said anything about states' rights or any of these other topics you might hear today. The only thing they point out is slavery to the tune of 80 plus times in these various articles.
They just wanted free labor, and they did not want to change that system. Okay, so our first paragraph. In New York Harbor stands tall a gigantic copper and steel structure, the Statue of Liberty, formerly known as Liberty Enlightening the World, but nicknamed Lady Liberty.
Rolls off the tongue better.
Oh, yeah, it does. But that sentence is kind of a tongue twister. It's a very long and not so long, but it's a really heavy sentence. It's really got a lot of information in it. So first of all, we're not talking just about New York. We're talking about New York City and in particular, New York Harbor. And they say stands tall. Normally we would say stands a tall, gigantic statue, but that's not what they're doing. They're saying stands tall. It's standing there and it reaches up into the clouds. It is standing tall. So it's not a tall statue, though they're saying that it is standing tall. It's standing up straight and proudly, in addition to being tall. So a gigantic means it's very, very big. Copper and steel are the materials that it's made of, two different metals. Structure is anything that you build can be called a structure. And the name of it is the Statue of Liberty, but formally known as means that it has really an official name. That's different, and I didn't know that actually. So everybody will call it the Statue of Liberty, But the real full name is Liberty Enlightening the World. And that is even kind of more inspiring. And it has the nickname Lady Liberty. And that's finally gotten us through the first sentence. Okay, next sentence. It has been an iconic symbol of freedom and democracy since it was shipped to the U.S. in 1885. Iconic is the important word here. We use that word a lot lately. An icon is something that you see every day on your computer. It's a symbol that stands for a computer program, an app, or anything that stands for something else. A little picture is an icon. And if it's iconic, it means that this little picture kind of summarizes this whole bigger thing, in this case, the whole idea of America, which we have always called a great experiment. America is still an experiment. It's work in progress. Okay, so it's iconic. It symbolizes what? Symbolizes freedom and democracy, the things that America was founded on, supposed to try and bring to a country that other countries really hadn't succeeded in before. And it has been this way since the year 1885, and that's the year that the statue was shipped to the U.S., but it was not all in one piece, as we are soon going to learn. A gift from France to the U.S., the statue is a sign of friendship between the two countries and carries a strong message about freedom. And for some reason, this really moves me because something so important to the identity of the U.S. came from France, and it is a very deep symbol of our continuing friendship. And as I said, I've been listening to the French news lately, and in fact, I think Europe is pretty much on board with the U.S. They know that they can't really survive without the U.S. because the U.S. is so big and much stronger. Everybody has to stick together, or we are going to be destroyed by enemies.
It's so funny to think that the Statue of Liberty has become so iconic to anybody's trip to New York City, and it has become an iconic symbol of the United States. I think few people can disassociate the United States and the Statue of Liberty. They just go hand in hand. However, as a matter of fact, many Americans did not want a gift celebrating freedom from the French. They were not comfortable with this idea because of the royalty. And they were not comfortable even paying for the idea. And as a matter of fact, the future president, but then governor, Grover Cleveland, did not want to pay for the pedestal and donating the land. Oh,
man, that's really cheap.
He did not grant anything.
That's so cheap.
He was, I liked Grover Cleveland as a president personally. Man, was he wrong about this.
Yeah, wrong about this. And it's funny that I often get emotional and tear up when I read stuff like this because I have chosen to live outside of my native country. I've not been back to the U.S. for more than 10 years. There are many, many things about America that I am really, really unhappy and about and dissatisfied with. But when you start talking about these ideals, man, we really tried. We had and still have those ideals. I tear up because, in fact, the U.S. has done good together with a lot of the awful things that have been happening.
So I agree with this.
You can't, like I said, that quote came to mind. You've got great beauty, you're going to have great evil or great ugliness with it. And that's the U.S., I'm afraid. Okay, a gift from France to the U.S. The statue is a sign of friendship between the two countries and carries a strong message about freedom. And that sums it up.
Let's go to our next paragraph here. In 1865, this is the end of the Civil War. A Frenchman put forward the idea of building a statue to celebrate both the end of slavery after the Civil War and the 100th anniversary of American independence.
Okay, so that was a really momentous event, but it's not something everybody was happy about because of all of the death, all of the destruction. The South was not happy at this point. They still are not happy. Many people in the South, they don't want to admit that they lost. They don't accept that they lost. But in any case, the violence at least was brought to an end for a time. And then we decided that, and it was carried out, that slavery was to end. And those were big things, even though people had a hard time. Some people had a hard time accepting them.
When we put forward an idea, this is just a little bit of a formal suggestion. This international project saw French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi bring the figure to life, while American architect Richard Morris Hunt began designing the base ahead of Lady Liberty's arrival.
So I don't remember that part about the base. So how was Grover Cleveland eventually convinced to pay for it?
This is a fascinating question. So the answer is he didn't and he wouldn't.
Oh.
The United States was tied to the gold standard until Richard Nixon. And the United States experienced a lot of financial up and downs during this period. And in fact, it was Joseph Pulitzer, the famous newspaper magnate, who said, hey, everybody, listen, I don't care how much money you got. Send in anything you got to help pay for this base.
Really?
Yes, this is a true story.
So he crowdfunded it.
He crowdfunded it. People would send in, I think they would send in about $1, which was quite a significant, it was almost a day's wage for many people at the time. That equates to about, I'd say, 1,000 NT at the, maybe 718 NT at the time. And many kids started school funds where they would send in pennies to help pay for this base.
That's amazing.
Were it not for Joseph Pulitzer, who kind of did some bad things himself, we would not have completed the base for the Statue of Liberty to be built. And as a matter of fact, before the base was even built, the statue was already there. They had to stick parts of it all over New York City. And in Madison Square Park, the big old torch is just sitting there while they're finishing the base and trying to get money for it.
What an amazing story.
There are so many bizarre and fun little stories in this. This is really, if you love history, jump down the rabbit hole. There are so many fun things to learn about.
Okay, yeah, but it seems like it's just so cheap to, not want to pay for the base. I mean, how big a deal is that?
I don't know the numbers, but the base was in fact significantly cheaper than the statue itself, and not even including shipping it to New York Harbor.
Our next paragraph, Lady Liberty's journey across the Atlantic Ocean was no small feat. Now, this is important for the information, saying that it's such a huge statue. You can't just kind of push it onto a boat and then sail it across the ocean. It didn't work that way. It was just too big and heavy. But the other important thing about this sentence is the idiom, no small feat. And each word is only one syllable. You have to read it very strongly, very emphatically, and put pauses between them. So, for example, getting here on time this morning was no small feat. Something crazy happened, like maybe there was an accident on the way. Whenever something happened that made something very difficult, you can say, this thing was no small feat. You want other people to appreciate how difficult it was.
Feat here, F-E-A-T, just means no small or easy job or task.
Or achievement.
People might talk about feats of strength. If you live in the United States, there was an iconic television show named Seinfeld. And at Christmas, there is this alternative holiday called Festivus. And at Festivus, you need to show how strong you are. And people say this, they phrase it as feats of strength. That's this word here.
Okay. Next sentence, the statue was disassembled into 350 individual pieces and packed into 214 crates. I'm imagining a jigsaw puzzle at this point.
I was imagining Lego instructions.
Lego, yeah. And you think all of those pieces, there are so many things that could go wrong if you don't have a really extremely explicit, clear set of instructions on how to put it together and how would everything match. It had to be manufactured very carefully so that everything would actually fit together. So crates are boxes usually made of wood. Crates, large boxes like a crate of fruit, for example. Disassembled is the opposite of assemble. Assemble means to put something together. Disassemble is to take it apart. It was also carefully labeled for a smooth and accurate reassembly. Now that reassured me. Everything had to have very clear labels on. This is the small finger, left hand, or whatever. Everything had to have a clear label so that the right piece went on the right place or in the right place. New York Harbor witnessed the arrival of Lady Liberty on June 17, 1885, marking the beginning of her significant presence in the U.S. So she arrived there, but she wasn't assembled yet.
Okay, and let's go to our final paragraph today. Despite arriving in 1885, Lady Liberty remained incomplete, awaiting her permanent base.
Which we have just heard about, which was a crazy, outrageous story.
In 1886, with the foundation in place, the final stage of Lady Liberty's assembly began.
This sentence is very straightforward. The foundation is the base that they're talking about. They have actually found the money to build it, and it's now built and ready. And so now they are going to put the pieces together to make the Statue of Liberty.
The delicate process of attaching the copper sheets to a steel frame took 4 months to complete.
That sounds pretty fast, actually.
Gustav Eiffel, the guy that later would go on to build the Eiffel Tower, was the guy that built the iron framework, and he was the guy that designed the way the copper sheets would hang on that steel frame, that steel structure. Now, the copper on the Statue of Liberty is actually no thicker than 2 NT coins pushed together. So take 2 NT coins, stack them on top of each other. That's the thickness of the Statue of Liberty's copper.
Wow.
With her torch held high, Lady Liberty serves as a timeless reminder of the lasting values that unite nations and inspire individuals.
Now, this is supposed to be kind of a corny sentence like we put at the end of an article, but this one also makes me tear up. It also makes me want to cry.
I agree with both of those things. It has that cornball factor, but it also feels very heartfelt.
It seems very sincere. It is something we still are working hard on. We have 2 short questions for you. Number 1, which 2 countries work together on Lady Liberty? This is pretty easy. They are
France and the United States.
And number 2, what did the gifting of the Statue of Liberty celebrate? Well, the answer is
the end of slavery after the Civil War and the 100th anniversary of American independence.
Okay, momentous events.
Karen, you asked me what relationship was there between those ancient monuments and the Statue of Liberty, and you're so close. So in reality, Bartholdi didn't model the statue after the ancients, the Greeks and the Romans. Instead, he modeled them after the ideals of the Renaissance, who took their ideals from the Greeks and the Romans. So you're one step away. It's a really good observation.
So there was like a transitional step in the between.
That's right. There's a baby step in the middle. Now, initially, I also mentioned that the Statue of Liberty has the long toe, the second long toe, and everybody wonders about that.
Yeah.
In reality, about 20% of people, their second toe is longer than their big toe. People during the Renaissance thought this was especially beautiful, and because he was modeling it after the Renaissance, that's why the Statue of Liberty has that really long toe.
What a satisfying explanation. Okay, so Chris has already told you that there is a very deep rabbit hole that you can go down into and find out more about the Statue of Liberty. If you have time and interest, why not give it a try? That's it for today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.